Hello. Grab a cuppa, grab a glass of water, sit down because we need a catch up. Let's start by addressing the elephant in the room, shall we? That you have not seen my face for quite some time. I'm trying to even remember the last thing that I actually posted. So in this video today, I basically just want to give you an overview of why I even disappeared in the first place, how the rest of prep went, obviously give you an overview of the day. I did in fact compete, I promise, and kind of catch up on what's been going on since then. Obviously all of the content on my channel so far has basically just been vlogs, which I've so loved, but anyone that follows me on Instagram, I've launched a podcast, like anything across any of my other channels, you know that a lot of my content has kind of shifted a little bit, and I want to bring a bit of that to YouTube. I know you guys love the vlogs and it is my intention to still bring you some of that as well, keep you up to date with my training, but I also really want to focus on the value, the educational side of things as well, to really and truly help as many people as possible. So I think I had essentially procrastinated this vlog purely because I knew there was an elephant in the room. Like, I knew I needed to address nationals and why I've literally ghosted all of you wonderful people. So yeah, love ya, but it's just been a weird few months. So let's start with a little bit of a backpedal, shall we? So I believe last time that I caught up with you I was around 2 or 3 weeks out, and the peak was going well. I consistently said through all of that prep, I was like, feel free to hold me accountable if I start freaking out about it being nationals and that label. I will warn you, I'm gonna try not to stress myself out over. Please feel free to call me out if you see me stressing about headspace, expectations, pressure, anything like that, because I want it to be the most low pressure comp for myself. When the label, right? That was consistently something that I kept squashing, that kept coming back with a vengeance. So essentially at around the 2 weeks out mark, I didn't share too much of it, but my anxiety got probably the worst that it has been in years. I used to struggle a lot with my mental health. Essentially, I started experiencing heart palpitations, which I have had a few times, but as a byproduct of that anxiety, purely because it was this label of nationals. Now, I have obviously been working at that point for like 2.5 years to get the QT, which is what I hit in my competition in May to get me to nationals in the first place. Huge achievement. And as you guys will know, if you've watched any of the other videos, rather than seeing it as, oh my God, how exciting is this? Like, now is my opportunity to go and get on that national platform, having worked my ass off, and reap the rewards so I can soak up the experience, so I can get to really love the day because I worked so hard for it. My experience ended up being, fuck, now I have to do it. And essentially what started spiraling was, like I said, I kept squashing it. Like, now I was like, no, I'm sure it'll be fine. Like, the closer we get, like, I'm sure at some point I have to start enjoying this process, right? I'd start thinking about it when I was drifting off to bed, and every single night I would have to do breathing exercises for an hour just to actually regulate my nervous system, to kind of remind it, like, girl, you're not actually on the platform right now. You are falling asleep. Like, can we chill, please? And basically every single night my body would go into fight or flight simply thinking about it. Your brain does not register the difference between real life and an imagined situation. Now, I teach all of my clients this in like a really manipulative way, that this is sometimes a good thing that we can use to our advantage, because this is, embodying the lifter that you actually want to be. You can start bringing that in and like fake it till you make it, almost imagine that you are that person, start showing up as them, and look at all of the amazing things that you can achieve. But I learned this in the complete opposite way. That was, like I said, I'd literally be falling asleep and my brain would like convince itself that it was happening now, and I would get all of the physiological responses as if I was literally on the platform in that moment, and it was horrible. So these heart palpitations started getting worse. The closer we got, did not squash it, they kept getting worse. It basically got to the point where it was a consistent pain in my chest for about 3 days, and it wasn't that I was ignoring it. I knew that it was there and I knew that I needed to do something about it. I wasn't being a silly Billy, but it did get to the point where I was like, is this anxiety or is this now actually something that I need to be concerned about? Because like I said, I'd experienced them before, but not to that level. And when it got to the point where it wasn't going away, I remember I was in the middle of check-ins one Monday in between calls with my clients, and I was like, I'm gonna have to ring someone. I'm gonna have to ring 111. Connor, my boyfriend, was on placement at the time, so he was living away. He had a placement quite far away, and he wasn't around. Obviously I live on my own. I was like, oh god. And I think that was probably most of what scared me about it. So I ended up calling 111. I ended up having to go to hospital for an ECG, and I was there all day because obviously when it comes to your ticket, like the NHS does not fuck around. And went through like tons and tons of tests, and I started getting, you know, pins and needles in my hand. That was the thing where I was like, I need to go to the hospital now because that's not normal. ECG was all normal. Had some blood tests as well done just to make like absolutely sure. They actually were really, really amazing on the day. And I ended up having to come back for another appointment to basically go through a full screening, to be told that it basically was it was my anxiety. So my anxiety got so severe that I felt almost paralyzed, like crippled by it, because I could not focus. Obviously when something like that happens, you're focused on the thing, which was nationals, but then I was also suddenly focused on all of the stuff that was happening in my body, and I just ended up feeling completely trapped. It meant that in every single training session it was happening, I started getting panic attacks in all of my primary sessions. So for that last 3 weeks, I had probably 6 panic attacks in session. And then, if that wasn't enough, what started then happening was an IBS flare-up. Now, being vegan is challenging sometimes at the best of times. Like, I know that my body doesn't react to a lot of foods that could or should be in my diet. Which I assumed that I maybe had some intolerances. I had tests done in the past and there was nothing that consistently showed up. So I kind of just dismissed it. And I've struggled with my digestion now and then. Like, I do get quite severe bloating, but it had always been a bit of a question mark in my mind. And because my anxiety got so severe, what ended up happening was an IBS flare-up. I am struggling so much today. I don't know what it was. I was up last night with kind of like an upset tum. I don't know whether I've just eaten something, but my like diet was not out of the ordinary at all. But anyway, today I am so fucking bloated. This probably doesn't look like much to a lot of people, but like it's so uncomfortable. And obviously with lifting, I am gonna have to brace and stuff when I get to the gym. I just feel like a bit sick. So I'm kind of struggling a bit today. I feel awful. I actually feel awful. I feel like I've been hit by a bus. Look at the bags. It lasted for 2 weeks. So if anyone is watching this that has IBS, you will resonate so heavily with what I'm saying, that I basically spent 2 weeks looking about 8 weeks pregnant. It did not settle. Like, there was nothing I could do to alleviate the symptoms, to reduce the bloating, to do anything to help my appetite. Like, it literally just felt like there was no room left in me. Not full up in the way, you know, when you stuffed your face and you feel really full, like satiated, we've done our job. It wasn't that. I wasn't hungry, but it was because I felt so full up. Not I can't find the wording. Not full up in the way that you've like eaten so much. It just felt like there was no room in my body, and it was making me feel really sick. I was getting really severe pain. I remember so vividly, I had this weekend in London. I'd vlogged the whole thing. It was really bad and there was nothing I could do. Like, this panic set in. It was the first time that I'd really left the house other than for training. I had to drive home. So I had this weekend where, in basically the penultimate peak week of prep, I had to go back to see my family, spend some time with them. From there, went up to London for an overnight trip. I had a work event, stayed overnight in London, and then the next day I was going to view the venue for my event that I had in January to see how much we had to catch up on. So it was the first time that I'd left the house, and I was like, what the fuck am I supposed to do about my nutrition? Because at this point, I could barely stomach anything at all. I was really trying to have oats, but honestly, like nowadays, I have about 60 to 70 grams of oats every morning, very comfortably. And at this point, I was like, I'm going to throw up, having had about 30 grams that was taking me about 2 hours to eat. Like, that is how severe things were. So ultimately, my Nats prep, all I could stomach was olive oil, white rice and Biscoff with a few additions here and there. That was my staple to try and cram in enough calories to get me on that platform to fuel my training. It was horrendous. And this weekend in London, like that was kind of all I knew. And I was like, what on earth am I supposed to eat? And being vegan anyway, like you're always going to be more limited on options. And I remember we had a little lunch break in the actual mindset session. So we were in this really bougie hotel, everyone's dressed up, I'm wearing all white, like it was risky at this point. That's all I'll say on the subject. I basically just had a banana because I was like, this should be easy, right? Wrong. If I wasn't bloated already, it pissed it off so aggressively. I was in so much pain the rest of the day. Bless my friend that I was sharing a hotel room with, because I barely slept that night. I was tossing and turning. I just literally could not get comfortable. The pain was not subsiding. Got up the next morning to go for a little swim because we were in a bougie hotel, and I was like, I literally feel like I look 8 months pregnant. And that whole weekend was so traumatizing. I basically got home and I walked in the front door. I put my bag down and literally just in like the hall of the house, I just lay on the floor and sobbed. Like I was completely broken. I felt so exhausted because I wasn't sleeping. I was barely able to eat. Like it really affected my mental health at this point. Like this is when my anxiety was already really bad. I'd just been to the hospital for fucking ECG, and now I just felt like an absolute shell of a human being. Completely paralyzed by everything that was going on, and I just felt this sense of impending doom. Like if I feel like this now, I've got 2 weeks until I get to nationals. Going into nationals prep anyway, probably about 8 weeks out, I remember having a conversation with my coach at the time and saying, I feel embarrassed. Like I feel like I don't deserve to be on that platform, even though objectively, like I'd earned the QT. Like I absolutely deserve to be there. I'd worked just as hard as anyone else to get to the platform. I literally had the number on the total saying like, here you go, this was the goalpost to get there, you've earned it, you've surpassed that, off you go to nationals. But for some reason it wasn't translating. I think it's because the QT was 360, and that is what I hit. In my mind I was like, well, I just scraped it, like it doesn't really count. At this point I'm sobbing on the floor, and it got even worse because I was like, if I feel this awful, like prep at this point as well, like things have been moving really, really awfully. I'll be so honest with you guys, I actually edited some of the vlogs because I didn't include all of the top sets of my deadlift that I failed. I probably cropped about 3 of them out of the last few vlogs because I was so embarrassed, because I was like, you guys have watched me this entire journey, like 140, easy weight now, and I failed it 3 times, 140, 142, 145, like that territory was not moving off the floor, and I was like, okay, I'm literally failing this. What the fuck am I going to be able to pull at nationals? Like this is embarrassing. And so here I am sobbing on the floor, not able to eat anything, zero fucking confidence in myself. I've already convinced myself anyway that like I'm going to dock quite a lot off my total. My deadlift, like particularly, we're going to lose like minimum 10 kilos. So what the fuck? And I'm laying there literally feeling like a piece of shit. Like I'll be so honest, I felt so rock bottom, not good enough. I felt like a fucking fraud. I was like, what the fuck, what am I even doing here to get to the national platform? Like, what? And it was probably the worst in myself that I have felt in such a long time. It took all of my strength to try and turn that around. I remember having a peak week session, and literally my coach at the time said to me like the words, how dare you, like I've never heard him say that, and he meant it from a place of love 1000%. Like at this point there was kind of nothing we could do, so everything he was trying to do was just to gauge like what does she need right now to get her through the session. Like I say, I was having panic attacks, so sometimes it was kind words and just a gentle reminder like, you're not made of glass, you're gonna be okay. I was just in so much pain, I wasn't able to brace properly. That was another thing in like the peak week. Like my last squat session, I could not brace. My position was dog shit, like I just had no support underneath that bar at all. And it got to my deadlift session, and he ended up saying the words to me like, how dare you? How dare you do this to the version of yourself that has worked her ass off for 2 years to get to this point? 2 years, and now he's saying you're not even going to go? Because I said to him, I was like, I actually think I'm going to pull out of nationals, I can't do this. And I sort of forgot the whole goal was just to do it. Like the goal was just to get there. You've ticked that box. All you needed to do was to show up on that platform, and you've achieved everything you set your sights on. But in my mind, I wasn't framing it like that whatsoever. I was already deeming it a massive failure because I thought like, well, it's nationals, like this has to be my best performance yet. And of course that didn't have to be the case, but this is where this massive internal conflict was coming from. So I remember him saying that to me, and I was like, do you know what, like, it hit for a few days, and then I was like, you're right. And I really worked on pulling it back, and the very last week of prep I actually had a really good week. I hit a new PB squat, so at that point I think my PB was 132.5 kilo squat. Last week of prep for nationals I hit 135. I'll put the video up here, and it moved well, all things considered. And I had this huge shift in mindset. It's like, what the fuck am I doing? Regardless of everything, I'm gonna be so angry at myself if I don't go, but I'm also gonna be so angry at myself if I gave up. And I just remember in about 48 hours I did a complete 180. I worked so fucking hard to go, like, do you know what, if this is all the time that we have left, I will kick myself if I did not make the most of it. And I absolutely did. It alleviated some of the symptoms with my anxiety and with my IBS. Like I was able to do a little bit more at that point. I managed to scrape a 150 deadlift for the very last single for deadlifts as well. And I think the very last week I hit probably a 70 kilo bench. So actually, all in all, it wasn't a bad week. Let me just tally up what that actually totals. Let me get 355 kilos. It's only at that point 5 kilos under my all-time PB total, which, given everything that happened, was actually an insane win. Like, an insane win. My calorie intake was ridiculous. Like, I was so uncomfortable, so bloated. My anxiety, my CNS, like my central nervous system, it was just shot. It was in fight or flight for literally about 3 weeks long. Tapered. So then the comp week comes around. Now, like I said, Connor was on placement away at this point, and we were intending on driving up to nationals together to share a car. So I ended up going to stay with him at his Airbnb for the week, which put me out of my usual routine, out of space and everything, and it just made the fact that we were going to nationals so much more real. I basically had this huge peak on the very last week, so my peak week. My mindset also peaked and I felt really good, and then it just plummeted. I once again spent 4 nights in hot sweats, unable to sleep because my anxiety got so awful. And I think I kind of just accepted my fate. Like, before I even got there, I was completely checked out. So Connor has his placement. We both competed on the Friday, which is actually really cool. So both our first open nationals. He competed in the morning as an under 66, and then I was in the afternoon session. He was handling me. So we drove up together after his placement on the Thursday night, all the way up to Wolverhampton. So it was about a 3.5 hour drive from where his placement was. We finally arrived to Wolverhampton. There's literally 10 minutes left on the sat nav, and it starts chucking it down with snow, and we ended up having to drive the last 5 minutes. Everything was settling, roads hadn't been gritted, like, this came out of nowhere. Everything was so slippy. He was driving the very last bit in my car, so I'm like crossing my heart, crossing his toes, everything, that he's not gonna crash. So I was like, fuck, this is my car. Like, he's on the insurance, don't worry, we were doing nothing illegal, but of course I'm like, I can't do anything. And we finally get there. We're driving 2 miles an hour up this hill to get to this spa hotel, and we get there and it's like, oh my god. Didn't sleep that night really at all. Was tossing and turning. I was weighing in really light, bearing in mind, by the way, that I had been trying to bulk ever since my competition in May. Went on holiday, as I caught you guys up with the vlogs. I basically went on holiday, and about 8 or 9 weeks out, dropped a ton of body weight, was trying to then bulk back up. So you can imagine as well, the IBS, the lack of calories, everything that we were trying to do just stunted all of that. And I think that night I was weighing at about 65. Bearing in mind that I compete as an under 69. Comp morning rolls around and got to the venue, and it's fucking ginormous. There's 2 platforms. The whole thing was really overwhelming. I was not excited one bit. Like, I was just filled with existential dread, which sucks. Like, I'm so upset that I wasn't actually able to enjoy the experience because of where my mindset was and how my body was responding to it. So I watched Connor, which again was a really hard thing because I couldn't do anything. I wasn't handling, I was just watching and spectating. He fucking smashes it, comes 4th in fucking UK, which is incredible. Like, he had a really, really good day. He had a bit of a stressful prep as well, but he did it really, really well. Then runs around to handle me. So the day itself, I can't remember what I weighed in at. I think it was 65.7 or something like that. Which was a pretty good outcome given that where we were at. Now, squats. So we opened at 125. I've got the videos from national, so I'll insert some of these just so that you can actually see. Opened at 125, which moved well. And then we ended up taking 132.5 as my second. So for squats, I matched my comp PB on my second attempt, which was really solid. Now, originally at the start of prep, we were thinking maybe if we can gain momentum, like 140 might potentially be there. But basically with how everything had gone, we took 132, probably capping it at 137. I personally didn't. I said to Connor on that particular day, I've never done this before. Like, I'm always a lifter who's pretty open, like I'm quite chatty, but if I need to zone in, I just go quiet and I stand in the corner and I just like bop to my music. But I'm usually quite in tune or in sync with my handle. Like, I like to know what's being loaded so that I can get into the zone for that particular number. This was the only prep or the only comp which tells you a lot, where I was like, just don't tell me what you're loading. Go and do it. And I think there was a part of me that thought that would help if I don't know. I was so on overload, so I basically just decided, just don't tell me and I'll just go and do. But I think that just goes to show how checked out I was. Like, you guys know how invested I am in my training. Like, that works for some lifters. It's never worked for me. So the fact that I was changing up tactics at a comp like that, like, pfft. Anyway, so we took the 132 and then we loaded 137.5 for the third attempt, which ultimately, unfortunately, was a fail. I think I ended up tipping forwards a little bit. I just lost my position out the hole and it wasn't there. So squats, we ended up with 2 for 3 with a 132. So again, like, objectively, it wasn't bad. I matched my lifetime PB on seconds. It was a pretty good day, but I just wasn't happy with it because ultimately that prep, like, squats were the one that were going the best. So that was a little bit disappointing, but ultimately I actually wasn't that pissed with it. Now, I should also preface this by saying, I briefly mentioned, I think possibly in one of my last vlogs, but I was due on my period a few days out from a comp, and that never came because of the stress, because of the anxiety. So again, I was just in this like elongated luteal phase, waiting for my period to arrive. So all of that was also contributing, and you guys know that I really struggle around that time with PMS, and the day of my period I get really excruciating pain and really emotional, obviously. So bench rolls around. It actually didn't move too badly. We matched the same as what I did in the last comp, so we opened at 65, which moved really well. We then took 70 as a second attempt and hit that, but I did get a red light, and this is the first competition ever where I kind of just, to be really honest, I sort of forgot that commands were a thing. For my 70, I realised it, I pressed it, and I literally pressed it as the centre ref said it. And I got it white lighted, but I think the right hand ref sort of caught onto it, and I realised it as well. I was like, oh my god, I didn't wait for that. It's just that I timed it so perfectly with whatever like tempo or like, you know, time that I was going at happened to match with when she said it. But even I walked off and I was like, oh god, I was not zoned in. Like, I had mentally checked out at this point. So we go back, and now I'm in PB territory. So once again, I'd matched my lifetime PB on a second. Like, objectively, this is good. We're in really good territory. We haven't lost any kilos from my last competition. And I went back into the holding area, and I put my headphones in, and I just felt in my stomach. I was like, not now. My period had started. My period started just before my third attempt. So at this point, I'm like, well, it's not going to go up now. Mentally checked out, self-fulfilling prophecy, completely convinced myself it wasn't going to happen. I don't think that the strength was there for it on the day regardless anyway. But of course, guess what happened? Did not move, red lighted. So we missed the 72.5. But again, we're currently like par for par. So we're not in a bad position. But by this point, I've gone 2 for 3 in both of my lifts. My period has just started and I'm completely checked out. Deadlifts was the one in prep that I was dreading the most, and now it was coming up. So you can imagine where my headspace was at this point. I was completely clocked out. I did not want to be there. I was embarrassed, which I don't even know why, because we were in a really good position, but nah, didn't want to acknowledge that whatsoever. Deadlift rolls around. I think we opened at 140. Actually, maybe I even opened on 142. Very comfortable load for me. Connor watches it and was like, that was work. And it felt like it. It felt hard. It didn't move bad. I'll show you. So it didn't move bad, but it didn't move how I knew that it should to be able to hit what we predicted. I remember Connor asking me before, he was like, what do you want to do today? I think I was like, best case scenario, maybe like 150, 155. I think ultimately maybe like 147, 152. That was kind of where my head was at. Second attempt, rough. Really rough. So we ended up capping at 147, I think, for the second attempt, which I got up, but it was, again, it was work. And for a 147, it should not have been moving like that. So honestly, come the third, Connor was saying to me, he was like, you're going to have to work for this. So it's not that I had checked out and I was convinced that it was going to be easy by any means, but I think I was just a bit like, well, this sucks. I'm at nationals and I'm pulling 150, which, don't get me wrong, like me from a year ago at that point would be absolutely gassed with, but there was just something about it that was really irking me about deadlifts, and I was like, I just feel so short of what my potential is, and I'm so embarrassed. I've gone 2 for 3 in the last 2 lifts. 147 felt like a fucking grind, like, we're gonna have to really zone in. Anyway, this is how 150 moved. Yeah, so for the first time ever I went 6 for 9, and because we ended up on a 147 deadlift, my total ended up being 350. So this was 10 kilos under what I'd hit in May. Now, don't get me wrong, I would not expect every single comp to be PB, or at least like outrageously PB. But there's also, I think, a school of thought that if you are consistently losing or you're consistently really up and down, something's going amiss. Whether that is poor decisions in your prep, i.e., consistently overshooting so that you're so fucked by comp that, you kind of just have to play with what you've got on the day. Whether it is that you are, competing too often, therefore you're not actually having the time to build between comps to be able to push your total up. Whether it's something that you fucked up on the nutrition side of things, the recomp on the day, you fucked up your taper. There's so many things that contribute to a bad day at that point in time. But I think because of that, there is, if you have enough time and you get those things right, there probably is a little bit of an expectation that you might be able to see quite consistent progress. And I think in my head, I was like, I've done everything right. This just sucks. And I ended up speaking to my coach afterwards. He called me afterwards, was like, just checking in, like, how are you doing? And I bawled. I sobbed my fucking heart out. I've never cried like that, like at a competition. I was just heartbroken because I just felt like this was the moment we've been working towards. I felt like I'd really let him down, that this was the moment I'd been working towards, we've been working towards for 2.5 years, and it flopped. And he said to me, he was like, genuinely, I don't say this very often to clients because usually there will probably be something that they fucked up. But he was like, I genuinely could not have asked any more of you. Like, it was just one of those really shitty situations where nothing could be done. Like, I reflect on this in a way that I take a lot of the blame, but at the time there was nothing that could be done. It's just that now reflecting on, I know that there was a lot there that was more my belief system. So anyone that knows anything about subconscious work, by the way, shameless plug, have a listen to my podcast, because since I last checked in with you guys, I've dropped a lot of content. Like, this has also been a big pivot shift of mine, partly from my own personal experiences, but I started this in October, like well before Nats Prep, but in that podcast there is a lot of audio trainings about your subconscious and how this specifically links to how you're showing up in your sessions, like the results that you are getting as a lifter. And this is stuff that I look back on, like knowing this, that at the time I could not see. And it's not that I blame myself for the performance, because a lot of it was out of my control, but also I know objectively there was probably things that I could have done to improve it, that my subconscious was just shielding me. Like, your subconscious's main role is to protect you, and so it's going to show up in really fucking sneaky ways that makes you not able to see that that's what it's doing. And it's almost like, don't look at me, don't see me, like I'm just trying to protect you, and it'll be so sneaky in how it does that. And so there were a lot of ways that I didn't realize were actually my subconscious stopping me, like protecting me from all of those things. But I now know objectively this was stuff that, had I known, I probably could have done a little bit of work on. I probably could have spent more time on my mindset work, on shifting that state. But I think a lot of it was just I feel like I succumbed to it, if that makes sense. Not that I was actively or consciously choosing to do that, but ultimately I did give in. And that's why, I think that's why I got the result that I did. And it was not a bad result. Like, 10 kilos off is not the end of the world. It's not like I lost like 30 kilos and bombed out of the competition or anything like that, but I just was so gutted, and I've done a lot of work on reframing that frustration, not as a means to be pissed off and sell yourself short, but as a means to knowing your potential. And that's all it was I felt that I fell short of what I know my potential is as a lifter, and I did it on the national platform. And like, don't get me wrong, like people, almost all lifters will have had a bad comp. If they've been around long enough, it happens. It just sucked, and it really stung for me that it happened to be nationals. That was my very first bad competition, as it were. Now, I've learned a lot from that experience, like a lot from that experience, and I was in a really bad place for a little while after, and coming into this year, I've made some changes. I'm actually working with a new coach. Now, she's also a nutritionist because that was also one of the biggest things I knew I needed to get sorted. And honestly, after nationals, just the fact that it was done, my anxiety settled, which meant my nervous system settled, which meant my IBS started to settle, and I was able to actually introduce a few new things. Since nationals alone, I've put on 3 kilos of body weight. So for the first time ever, I've actually been able to properly bulk. And I do truly feel so much better for it. You guys are about to die, so I'm literally, oh. I'm just gonna put you on charge, bear with me. Are you charging now? Yeah, okay, amazing. You guys are also really dark. You've been on really low exposure that entire time, so I'm really sorry about that. So yeah, I've actually been able to put on body weight, like so much of it settled. We also then, because obviously I'd been working with my previous coach for about 2.5 years, it was an entirely new approach, which I think at that point I needed. I think sometimes just having a bit of novelty just sparks that bit of excitement again, which I think my brain just needed. Like, I've come to fucking hate training. Like, I have never been in a phase like that where I just resented training. I did not want to go to the gym. I did not want to do it. I did not want to lift. Like, what the fuck? Like, that has never been me. It is my, I fucking adore it. It's my sanity. It's my safe space. And I didn't want that to be disrupted, ruined for me or anything like that. So I knew that I needed to make some changes, and I knew I needed to work really hard on shifting that. And I'm very proud to say that I absolutely have. I really have. I've worked hard, I've built my strength, I've worked on my technique, I've worked on my confidence, I've shifted a lot of my belief system. I just feel in a really good place with my training, which is also why I wanted to share this video, because if you guys have followed me on Instagram, you'll know that I also spontaneously did another competition literally the weekend just gone, which was amazing. It was so needed. Now, British powerlifting have changed their qualifying procedure for nationals, which is also one of the reasons why doing it was such a big deal, because it was probably going to be the last opportunity that I would have to do it. So in previous years, obviously, like you guys will know, they've had qualifying totals. So in order to get to nationals, you have to hit this certain total, and then you get to go and do it. Now, they've kept that procedure in for sub-juniors, for juniors, and for masters, but for open, which is from 23 till 40, so the age category that I compete in, they've changed that procedure. Now, it's really complicated. They've actually only really just clarified what it looks like. I won't bore you with it, but essentially, in summary, for the Gen Pop lifter, i.e. not the creme de la creme, like having won nationals, All England, or your respective regions, so Scottish, Welsh, you basically are not going to go to nationals, is kind of the long and short of it. Like, maybe one day, but it also means you have more limited options now, really, for where you can push to. So what they introduced was, you have nationals, so that is like the end goal. That is the top now 14 lifters in the country will go head to head per weight class. So it's a lot more, like, obviously exclusive, which I completely understand for viewership. And I think they're trying to make it a lot more now like an international competition. So again, like making it a little bit more of a streamline for the top lifters. What you now have is, for English lifters, you would have a competition called All England. They've now introduced a Southern and a Northern comp, so they are almost then another opportunity to qualify. So if you win All England, Northern or Southern, they are 3 additional spots that then get you fast track to nationals. But it also means they are going to be now national standard competitions. So the Southern one is literally 20 minutes down the road from me, and I was like, well, I'd be stupid not to apply for that, really. Now, initially, the entries were going to be on good lift points, so GL points. But again, they've now reduced, like, they've changed the procedure a lot. It was all a bit confusing. So basically, the long and short of it was, I kind of decided that I would need to do another competition to qualify for the Southern qualifier. Originally, the GLs were really low. I was convinced they were going to raise them just as a bog standard. If you wanted to do this competition, this is the entry. They've now changed it, but I'd already entered a competition. So basically, because I was convinced they were going to raise it to 75 GL, and my nationals performance put me at 74.8 GL, and I was like, oh, I feel like they're going to raise it and I'm going to miss out. So I decided to enter another competition to get high GL so that I could get in. They haven't actually raised the GL, it's just that the qualifying procedure looks a bit different, so it's still going to be really difficult to get in. But I then entered a competition. I was kind of like, well, regardless, I just feel like I need to get my confidence back up on the platform, and I need to enjoy training again. I need to enjoy competing again. Like, this is not something that I want to come to resent. I want to work my ass off to get that. Now, a competition came up that is literally at my gym, so it's 5 minutes down the road from me, and 6 weeks out, so the day before the entries opened, I decided to go for it. So it was really spontaneous. It was only a few weeks into me working with my new coach at this point, and I was like, do you know, I think that this is probably the better option out of all the competitions we have coming up, to be able to have enough time to then like prep and qualify again for the next for the Southern competition, which was going to be at the end of July. So it was a very fast turnaround. I decided 6 weeks out to do this, so we literally had time to finish off my current block and then have 5 weeks to prep for the next competition. Now, let me catch you up on that, because like I say, we were able to really address a lot of the nutritional side of things. So I was able in that time to gain 3 kilos of body weight. So I pushed up to about 68.5, and then on competition day it ended up basically weighing in at 67.6. So unintentionally dropped a little bit of body weight, but essentially like the average was averaging much higher, like needed it to be where we were, which was amazing. So in prep, we ended up pushing, I think we did triples straight into singles, and I hit a 72.5 single in training. It was beautiful. I was really happy with it. And then obviously we peaked into the competition. Now, squats started really gaining some momentum. I got my rigs back on, and basically the last single of prep was a 137.5 kilo single, which was 5 kilos above my comp max, 2 kilos above my like all-time PB, which at that point was 135. Deadlifts, technically speaking, as in the execution of it, was still a little bit like touch and go. It was still quite difficult to master, but we started gaining a tiny bit of momentum towards the end of it. So we pulled a 150 single for the very last week of prep, which again, especially compared to nationals, just moved so much better. So that was a really nice confidence boost. That I was like, well, I don't know if we'll be in PB territory, like potentially having the option to match my 157.5, which is what I hit in May, might be there. But regardless, like this was the confidence boost I needed. Like even if I matched that, I was like, yeah, I'm gassed with that. And then we just took a 70 kilo bench single for the very last week of prep for bench. So comp day rolls around. Like I said, I had spent that 3 months working so hard on my belief system, on building my confidence, and truly this prep was probably my favorite ever. Like I worked so hard, I felt so good, worked on my confidence as a lifter, my knowledge around my nutrition, like really trying to be the best that I could be. But also, because there was no pressure with this comp, like I knew all I needed to do was basically show up, and I was pretty much guaranteed to hit the GLs that we wanted to. So by removing the need for a specific outcome, like I didn't really care. I was like, I just want to have fun, like whatever that looks like, I will make that the case. I just decided, fuck feeling like that, fuck putting all that pressure on myself. I gave myself permission to detach from the outcome, and that honestly is the single shift that I've made that made the world of fucking difference. Again, I have a whole podcast episode on this. I'm going to post a link in the description, so have a little look through any of the episodes, because there's so much incredible content on there. I'm really proud of it, and I know you guys will love it, but I'm also going to backlog some of the videos specifically onto YouTube for you. And I have an episode specifically on detaching the outcome from the outcome, because it's the biggest shift that I made. And you guys know the last couple of competitions, I basically just wore my like black singlet. I went all out. I was like, I am the most confident I've ever been in myself, in my training, about the platform. I'm going all in, and I got a bright pink singlet, almost like to represent the shift that I've made, because I fully now identify as a powerlifting Barbie. Like honestly, it was so amazing, and basically I had the best day. Like it was so fucking sick. So I finally hit a 140 squat on the platform. Like that is a goal of mine that's been coming for so long, but I've just always felt like I was falling short of it. And let me show you this fucking squat. I was so proud of it, so gassed with it. Also, it was so nice to be on home territory. I think that's the bit that really, really made the day as well, was it was at my home gym. So I had everyone from that gym, like everyone that I knew that was there was supporting me, and it made the world of difference. Like, what the actual fuck? I was so gassed, so gassed. So that was fucking incredible. We opened on 127, took 135 and then 140, which was just like a highlight of my life, like top 5 moments. Like, there's this trend going around at the moment, like moments I feel like Hosier's yell, like from the song, and this was literally one of those moments. Bench, we ended up just taking the same. We did 65, 70 with an attempt of taking 72, and I think actually going into it I was probably a little bit optimistic with that because I'd hit it. I was like, oh, I can do that now, not really taking into account like the fatigue that we'll have from squats and just like general bits and bobs that come with competition. Like, you can't always guarantee it. You take what you have on the day, and as much as we taper to the best of our ability, like sometimes it's just one of those things. So unfortunately we missed 72 on the day, which did sting a little bit, but upon reflection, like, I didn't have much more in me on that day. I maybe had the strength of like 71.5, but c'est la vie, like, it is what it is. So matched PB on that, so we're still stuck on the 2 for 3 curse on bench, but that's fine. And then for deadlift, we ended up dropping my opener. I was originally going to take 142 to then take 150 and then see what was there for thirds, but we ended up dropping it to 140. Now, the night before the competition, I didn't sleep amazing, and I did have a little flare up on my back, but also I was just at this point cooked. Like, really happy with how we recomped with my nutrition. So basically the night before we didn't do an aggressive gut cut like I've done in the past, which is where you basically drop your fiber intake so that when you step on your scales, obviously your fiber builds up in your gut. It's what aids digestion. Like, obviously the fiber, we all know what that does in our body. So the way that you can manipulate body weight sometimes for comps is by dropping that. So you still eat the same number of calories, you still hit the same macros, but technically there's not as much like waste in your guts that makes you physically a bit heavier when you step on the scale. So you can manipulate that by dropping it. So we did a little bit of that, but not very much. But basically, so we just cut food. So we did a little drop in my fiber, but not anything crazy. Cut my food from 6 p.m. My weigh-in was at 8 a.m. So basically just fasted my like food and hydration. Woke up a bit lighter in the morning, so I just started on like the electrolytes to replenish my salt. So we basically aced the recomp because I felt so fucking good for my squats. And then I think because of the high, and like I was all over the place, didn't really fuel enough by bench. So basically by the time that I finished bench, I was fucked. Like, fucked. I literally have a photo of me laying on a trampoline, on a treadmill outside the gym, like just dead. I was like, I was so shaky, like my blood sugars were just fucked. So really had to force feed myself there. Got a bit bloated, which is not the most ideal thing, but I needed the energy, so I was like guzzling those little like carb gels. Managed to scrape together enough, but we did end up dropping the opener to 140. We then took 150 for a second, with, like I said, the plan kind of being to aim for the 157, which if I'd have got 140, 72.5 and then 157.5, that would have got me a 370 total, which would have been 20 up from what I hit at Nats, and a 10 kilo PB overall. Obviously missed the 72.5, so I was a bit like, let's just go sensible and play with what's there on the day. Like, I don't want to miss any more kilos. So we took the 150, and it was a bit more work than we were expecting, but I was kind of like I am cooked. Your gal is cooked at this point. So we ended up taking 155 for the third attempt. And let me just show you this, because basically we just took everything that was there on the day, and I think we played it to a T, because for some reason this ended up being like an absolute RPE 12, and I managed to get this up, but like I was fucked. But just watch this, because what the fuck. Yeah. I was really fucking happy with the day. 365 kilo total, which is a 5 kilo all-time PB on my total, and was 15 kilos up from my Nats total just 3 months before. So the 140 squat was a 7.5 kilo comp PB, a 2.5 kilo all-time PB, but like a lot up from my nationals. Bench was a matched comp PB of 70, obviously 2.5 under what I'd hit in training, but only like 4 weeks before. And then deadlift was 7 kilos up from my hit in nationals, but it was 2.5 under both my comp and lifetime PB. So actually, all in all, like I said, we played the day perfectly. We took everything that was there, and it was actually a huge outcome. And I even managed to win best open female lifter, which was really quite an unexpected but like nice surprise. So yeah, it was just incredible, and I'm feeling so good. Like, I have extracted so many lessons. I cannot like I really want to press, if you guys don't already know about my podcast, go and follow it, because I am so proud of the content that goes out there. but I really share a lot of my own personal lessons, which I obviously teach my one-to-one clients, lessons that I sort of flip so that you guys can learn from my mistakes, or that I can help you guys as much as fucking possible so that you can unlock the powerhouses that you know you can be. And like, truly, the reason I sort of hid myself away at the time was because I was so embarrassed, but I have worked so much on growing that confidence. So I wanted to check in with you guys to tell you first and foremost, I did in fact do the competition. It wasn't a total flop, but like, the reason that I stopped sharing so much of it was because my body was literally in fight or flight. Like, it was a really difficult, paralyzing couple of weeks, and there was just nothing left in me to vlog. Like, I did a few, I vlogged until about a week and a half before, and then I couldn't anymore. Like, I didn't want to keep showing up every day. Like, I don't want to do this, guys. I don't want to do this, guys. Like, it was just not, it was not who I wanted to be, and so I just kind of hid away from it. But like I said, I've worked so much on addressing everything, and I really truly cannot wait to show you this next stage, because I really feel like I'm just in a completely new era, and I'm so excited to start sharing that with you. So obviously I have just completed my plan, unless I get into Southern, which we'll see. Will be probably not to compete for a while, just have a really big off season and grow both my confidence, my strength, my technique. I've got a few weak areas that I know that I want to address, so that's kind of where I'll be at. So I'll probably do a few vlogs checking in with you guys now and again, but I also want to start transforming a little bit more into some educational value content. So as always, like, I would love to know what you guys want to see, but thank you so much for sticking around for this video. Like, if you have any questions for me about the prep, like, I'm more than happy to answer it, because I know that there has been a lot of blanks. But obviously if you follow me on anything else, you'll probably be a little bit more clued into kind of like what's been going on. So truly, I am sorry but not sorry always for ghosting and for not posting anything, but I hope that this has kind of caught you guys up as to what's been going on, and I cannot wait to share the next chapter of my life, my lifting, my training with you. And as always, if you have liked this video, please make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, because I've got some really incredible things coming along. If you don't already follow the podcast, I'll pop the link in the show, like the actual description of this video, show notes. That's can you tell I've just been doing my podcast. And of course, if you don't follow me anywhere else, I'll also put my social links down there. So if there's anything I can help you guys out with in the meantime, if you have any suggestions that you would like to see for videos, let me know. But I'm so excited to start bringing this to you. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.